And is that when you started photographing jazz musicians?
Well, yeah, then I went to New York, and I had a little studio in Greenwich Village, and to make a living I did portraiture, because that's what I was into. But I'd always been a huge fan of jazz ever since I was a kid. But here was an opportunity to actually see the guys that I'd always admired. And I went to the clubs, and I said to the club owner, can I shoot pictures in the afternoon in rehearsal? I'll give you the pictures and you put them out front. He said, sure.
What clubs in particular?
I started out in a club called the Royal Roost, which was on Broadway, about 48th Street, a cellar club. And that was another turning point. The opportunity that he afforded me to shoot the way I wanted to shoot. Today you can't do that. I mean, this circumstance would never happen today. First of all, you got 10 million photographers. Who was shooting jazz in those days? Nobody. There was no money in it. I was doing it for my own personal pleasure. I loved the photography. I wanted to make pretty pictures. I never gave a thought to selling them to anybody, because who would buy them? Well, it took 40 years before somebody said, hey, that's pretty good.
Tell us about the Miles Davis portrait.
Oh yeah, Miles.
Anecdote. Really a difficult subject to photograph, right?
Miles was not a difficult subject. He was the easiest subject to photograph, in the sense that the guy was so interesting and full of character that I say you cannot take an uninteresting picture of Miles Davis, no matter how bad a photographer you are, because he's got all that quality in his face. In 1991, there was a jazz festival in Montreux, Switzerland, and Quincy Jones did the show. I'm a friend of Quincy for 50 years, so I went. And Miles was on the bill, but he was very sick. He was really, really ill. And it was only because of his friendship with Quincy that he agreed to show up. So during the rehearsals, and the interesting thing to me was with the particular music that they chose to play at this concert to a live audience. They played something that Miles had never played live to an audience, ever, anywhere. It was the Concerto de Naranjas with the Gil Evans arrangements. They'd only done it in a recording studio. But here they were going to, and it's a difficult arrangement, a lot of changes and stuff. And Miles was not in great shape. So they put Wallace Roney next to him. Wallace is a tremendous trumpet player. And in those passages that Miles had problems with, Wallace would come in and fill in for him. And so we're there during the rehearsal, and there are 30, 40 photographers in the pit. And after two numbers, two things they went through fast, all out, as they do. You know, you cannot stay. But Miles piped up and he says, but Herman stays. Well, these other photographers looked at me, they were ready to kill me. I was blown away. And that's how I got that shot that I love. One of the most important pictures to me that I've ever shot of anybody, because I know what's in it. Other people may not see what I see. Miles died 6 weeks after that. He was on his way, and I think he knew it. Because I can see not the passion, I can see the anguish in his face, in his eyes. And he was just a beautiful cat. And then I had another opportunity later on, or rather earlier, in '89, in California. I had an assignment from a British magazine, and I went out to his house in Malibu on the beach. And I had to go 3 days in a row because each time I'd go, there'd be another television crew doing something and he couldn't shoot. And on the third day, I finally got him. Except when I drove up to his house again, his Ferrari Testarossa was not in the driveway as it was in the previous days. I think, oh my God, he's gone. And he was gone. 20 minutes later, he shows up. He had been to the dentist. Now, you don't want to photograph anybody who just came from the dentist. You know what I mean? They're really not at ease. So he comes up to me, and I say, so you sure you wanted to? He said, Herman, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. And I gave him a big hug. And I spent the whole day there, which is unusual for somebody to be able to spend a whole day with if you're not a fellow musician. But he was great, and he was a painter later in life. So that day he was painting, and he had this horizontal canvas, and he was leaning over it with his pen doing some sketches. And I took a couple of shots of that. I said, okay, I got a picture of him painting. But when I looked at the negative, I already saw the positive. And that, too, is one of my all-time favorite photographs because it's not necessarily Miles Davis, but it's a very graphic picture. It's pure black and white. There are hardly no middle tones, and it's very pretty. And it's Miles Davis and no horn. And that, too, is important to me, to show that he was a painter. But he, to me, I've been asked, who was your favorite subject? Miles. Heads above everybody else. I've taken unflattering pictures of Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, and a lot of other people, and you'll never see them. But I've never been able to take an uninteresting picture of Miles Davis. Amazing guy. And when he died, I cried. I don't cry, but I cried. I cried for two people, for Miles and for Dizzy, who was a really close personal friend. Because we lost two genius people. Miles was the Picasso of jazz. He went through the evolution, different stages. And in the end, he was doing rap or hip-hop or something. Come on. He's always looking for something new.